Okay, this is NAL Playdate number 4 recap. First game of the day is Space Station versus TSM. This is that classic NA rivalry. For the longest time, these were the two best teams in North America, and things are a lot different these days, but these are both teams that have won the 6 Invitational. We have 8 world champions in this lobby, everybody except for Skies and Hot and Cold. They decided to go to Oregon, which is the same place that they played last time that they met, and Space Station took it pretty decisively with Hot and Cold absolutely massacring these guys. Complete destruction, unfortunate for TSM, but we did have a closer game here, 8-6. So let's take a look at the round counts. Right, Space Station takes the first round, big 4K from Skies, and then TSM takes the next round. And this is sort of a trend that we see in this match. Space Station keeps getting ahead, and then TSM keeps catching up. So 2 more rounds for Space Station. This was sort of a, not quite a ninja defuse, but Rampy disabled while he had an opponent alive. I think it was Merc, just barely failed to get to him and stop him from defusing. And so Space Station takes that round as well as the next one. So they're up 3-1. TSM gets 2 to make it 3-3. So Space Station strikes and TSM strikes back. Going into the next half, Space Station is on the attack. They take the first 2 rounds going up 5-3. It's looking good for them again. They just need 2 more rounds to close it out in regulation. But the next 2 rounds go to TSM. So back in an even scoreline, 5-5. And then 1 more for Space Station. So if they can get this next round, they get the full 3 points. But that's not what happens. TSM gets it off the back of a Merc clutch here. And so we're going to overtime. But because the trend continues, Space Station just takes it. Space Station kept going ahead by 1 or 2 rounds, and once you go to overtime, you only have to win the 2 rounds. So that's exactly what they do, and they win 8-6. So pretty well down to the wire. It could have gone 1 more round, but that's about it. So pretty good game, I'd say. One of the most entertaining games of the season thus far, and only, like the second overtime game or something. Yeah, definitely a good one to watch. If you didn't actually watch it live, I'd recommend it. Community prediction 60-40 in favor of Space Station. That's probably about what I'd give it. TSM is still the reigning world champions, but Space Station has just looked better this season, and I guess even last season in best of ones and whatever. Space Station were just the absolute kings. So yeah, I think if you were just picking the favorite, it was definitely Space Station, but maybe it's a little bit up to interpretation how favored they actually were. And then looking at the stats, Geo and Merc did quite well here, with everyone else on TSM doing not so well. Chala really struggling in the stats department, as is the life of a support player, but we see Bolo continuing to not put up good numbers, and well, we actually see the same thing from Fultz, so I don't know, maybe Finka's not as broken as everyone thinks. And then, well, Achieve didn't do too well here either. And then it is Skies on Space Station that continues to be the star of the show. So I think him and Hot and Cold were like neck and neck on stats, and this certainly is going to put Skies ahead of him. And then, yeah, Rampy, Bosco, Hot, and just sort of mediocre stats. And then, yeah, Fultz not so good, but they did pull out the win. Maybe if, somebody on Space Station had just done slightly better, they might have got the full 3 points. But, I'm sure they're still happy to take down TSM once again. And, okay, let's move on to the second game of the day. All right, Parabellum versus XSET. This is Spirits versus his old team, and kind of Creators versus his old team. He was on XSET, but it's not really the same team, so not exactly, but still sort of. Right, so we go to Chalet here, which tips things toward Parabellum. Before we actually got to see the map, I'd say this is perhaps the most even-looking matchup of the day, the hardest one to call. There were several on the day that seemed pretty difficult to call, maybe even all of them except for one. But right, so Parabellum won on Chalet against Sonics, and XSET lost on Chalet against TSM. Also going back further, Parabellum has been really, really good on Chalet. It's been their best map, so it seemed strange for XSET to want to go here, but I mean, after we saw the game, it wasn't strange at all. So, I mean, I guess you can chalk it up to XSET really realized what they did wrong against TSM, so they were able to correct those mistakes, and then also they had very recent VOD on Parabellum winning on this map, so they could play against that. And Parabellum, sure, they also had the bot on XSET, but it was in a not super bad loss, but a fairly bad loss. It was a 3-7, so maybe there's just not as much information to glean from that. So, right, Parabellum gets destroyed.
So there's no way to cross your fingers with Parabellum without also repping the set.
And this means that XSET has destroyed a team for 2 weeks in a row. So in the past, or not 2 weeks, 2 playdays, I suppose. In the past 2 playdays, XSET has a 7-1 and a 7-0, so they've only dropped the 1 round. And so let's look at the round breakdown here. XSET runs away with it at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds in a row. They get all the attack rounds. And it is Chalet. It is one of the more attacker-sided. I mean, I don't know, if not the most attacker-sided. We'll have to see by the end of the season. Maps, and I suppose these attacking wins will go a long way to enforcing that stat line. So yeah, maybe Parabellum can bring him back, win 6 in a row on attack, but it's almost insurmountable. Okay, so we do switch sides, and they get 1 round, but then XSET just gets 1 more, and we'll take a look at the stats here. So Yaga pops off here. He's been doing really well this season. Kino, not as good. He was their other really good player thus far. Gomez, I think he was their bottom player in every game up until this one, so it's good to see him doing well. And then Diaz and Spirit's doing fine as well. Spirit's actually on the bottom of the board versus all team, but a 7-1, you can't really complain too much. Everyone on Parabellum getting smashed. Creators on the top, not terribly significant though. They're all, I mean, not super tightly clustered, but, you know, 5-7, 4-7, 4-7, 3-8, 3-8, whatever. Not too terribly interesting to look at. And I mean, XSET just looked really scary going forward. They did lose to TSM and SSG in the first week, and maybe that was a little bit of a slow start, but it looks like they have overcome that slow start massively. Let's see what they can do in the future. And Parabellum, we're looking pretty good coming into this match, but I think this brings them back down to earth a little bit. So we will move on to the next matchup. Dark Zero versus Astralis, another fairly tough one to call, I'd say, coming into the day. The community prediction, as you can see here, definitely favors Dark Zero, about 3/5 of the voters in favor of Dark Zero. And before the season started, yeah, I mean, I think you'd definitely say Dark Zero were the favorites, but coming into this playday in particular, Astralis were actually above them on the scoreboard. So both of them had taken 2 wins apiece, but Dark Zero had to do one of them in overtime, so they only had 5 points, whereas Astralis had all 6 points. Astralis beat Space Station, and that was a fairly close affair, very close affair. It went 7-5, one more round, it could have been overtime, but Dark Zero, right, they lost the 1 point against Beast Coast, even though they beat them. And Astralis destroyed Sonics, but Sonics look like a little bit of a freebie at the moment, as we'll see, I think, in the next matchup. And Dark Zero also, well, they lost to Parabellum, right? So I think coming into the matchup, based on the very recent events, Astralis looked like the better team, and they did end up pulling it out, even though it looked scary at certain points. So another Oregon game here, and taking a look at the round breakdown. Astralis gets the first round, and then Dark Zero gets the next 4. One more for Astralis. So, you know, the old intuition of Oregon being very defender-sided, it definitely gets challenged in this playday, but up until this point, it still looked like it might be very defender-sided, so Dark Zero getting 4 attacker rounds was potentially very scary. It was all just going to come down to what Astralis could do in their second half, and, well, you know, it was very good for them that they got this round. So we go, again, 2-4 for Astralis into the second half. Astralis now attacking, and they get 1, 2, 3, 4 of their own. So they are now on match point. They're up 6-4. Dark Zero needs the next 2, and they actually get them. NJR gets a little bit of a 1v2 clutch, and there's another round up here somewhere. It doesn't say 1v3. I think it's this round, and, well, spoiler alert, it's going to be the play of the day, and we'll show it at the end of the video. It's not an actual 1v3 clutch because DP Fire has a player downed on his team, but it was basically a 1v3 clutch. And yeah, it was impressive. You'll see it at the end of the video. It's the play of the day. And okay, so we go into overtime, and Astralis takes the first round, and then they take the second round. So sort of similar to the TSM versus Space Station game, where, I mean, I guess it wasn't neck and neck. It was sort of back and forth. There were a lot of really long streaks here. So, I mean, one more time, Astralis, and then 4 for Dark Zero, 1 for Astralis, and then 4 more for Astralis, so that makes 5 in total, and then Dark Zero to go to overtime, and then ends up being an 8-6 on Oregon is the biggest comparison point. So, right, Astralis does manage to win it in the end, even though it looked kind of scary in the first half. And looking at the stats, DP Fire on top, the player that has that very nice play for the day, Shuttle and JNNO doing well as well, and then Force and Iconic doing fine. Hyper, the only player doing especially well in Dark Zero, NJR holding his own, and then the other 3 struggling to varying degrees, especially Eclipse. It's unfortunate to see, but that was the third matchup. We will go into the fourth one now. Sonics versus Beast Coast, and this was a 7-2 for Beast Coast. So, I mean, this is basically the final nail in the coffin for Sonics in regard to going to the major, I would imagine. Even if they win out from here, they can only get, 15 points on the board, which maybe will be enough to get top 4. But, I mean, it's going to be quite tricky. Oxygen already has 12 points, and some teams already have 8 and 7 points and stuff, and it's just going to be really, really hard. It's still possible, but one more loss might actually lock them out. I didn't run the numbers or anything, but right. So, yeah, just for some reason, Sonics look like easily the worst team in NA right now. They have the accolades in the past to back up a pretty massive comeback, but, you know, I don't think I or anyone else should have any faith in them until they've proven that they have recovered from this slump. They've only got 6 rounds or something in 4 games. Pretty bad. Okay, so we go to Oregon here. This is the same map that Sonics just got 7-0'd on in the previous playday, and also Beast Coast lost on the previous playday to Oxygen, and that was a 7-2 as opposed to the 7-0 on Sonics. But both of these teams, I mean, liked the map enough to go there. They both took the loss, and I guess they both thought it just came down to the team that they played or how they played or whatever, things that they could change coming into this matchup. And so looking at the round breakdown, there were a few heartbreakers in here for Sonics. It seemed like they probably could have got at least like 4 rounds on the board, and then maybe from there they could have turned things around, but no, just too many rounds went away from them. A 1v2 clutch from Drip in the first round, a 1v3 clutch from Slash in the second. Those are just sort of heartbreakers. So right, Beast Coast 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds in a row. Sonics does get the last 2 rounds of the half, so this is the same thing as Dark Zero versus Astralis, not the exact same rounds won in terms of the round number, but it is the Sonics going on to attack in the second half at a 2-4 scoreline, which is the same thing Astralis did, and they made the comeback, but Sonics don't manage to do it. They lose this round, this round, this round. Yeah, they don't win another round. And yeah, it's tough. Something's up with them. They gotta improve. I don't know exactly what their issue is, but I'm hoping for the comeback. We'll have to see. People are still remaining hopeful. Maybe this is Beast Coast haters, and maybe this is just Sonics hopefuls, whatever it is, but still giving them 45% after their recent performances is a little bit questionable. I'm sure this number will be lower going into their next games, especially considering they have a very tough schedule going forward. They haven't played Dark Zero or SSG or Oxygen or TSM, am I right? And then their only other game, I think, is Mirage. I hope I'm not confusing that. Okay, so looking at the stats, yeah, Surf, another incredible game. I think the only game that he hasn't been on the top of his team by a wide margin was against Dark Zero. So yeah, Surf has been incredible. And then Drip, really good stats here as well. A little bit surprising considering the roles that he plays. Anthony, Sweater, even Slash, they all did fine. 2 very good. And then Yeti on top of his team, just below the 1.0, Grixer, Rex, and Kansan Super. Well, you know, the stats don't matter too much. They got crushed any way you spin it. And okay, so that does it for this match. Let's go on to the last one for the day. Oxygen Esports versus Mirage, final game of the day, and it is a 7-2 for Oxygen. I think every other matchup for the day, it was reasonable to pick either team to win. Maybe you thought TSM would win, even though Space Station seemed a little bit favored. Maybe you thought XSET Parabellum was pretty even. I did Astralis versus Dark Zero, maybe a little bit volatile seeming, but pretty even looking on paper. Reasons to pick either team. And then the previous one, Sonics versus Beast Coast. Sonics had looked quite awful, but you know, maybe that's where they start their bounce back. They are still the exact same players from a very good team in the past. Maybe they could have made the comeback. That didn't happen, but right, that leaves this game, and just nobody, I think, could reasonably actually believe Mirage was going to beat Oxygen. It's possible. I mean, Mirage did beat TSM, which, based on TSM's performance this stage thus far, isn't the most impressive feat, but it is still something. Oxygen looked untouchable coming into this game, and they look untouchable coming out of this game as well. Unfortunate that they couldn't win the 7-1. They had the opportunity to, because that would have meant that they won 7-4, 7-3, 7-2, and then 7-1. But I mean, 7-2 into 7-2 is still not bad. I think I forgot to mention this before, but Sonics have an unfortunate trend. I don't think it's like in a row or anything, but they've had a 0-7, a 1-7, a 2-7, and a 3-7. So almost a little bit of a parallel if Oxygen had done the 7-1 here. Sort of in a way. So we do go to Clubhouse, and this is the first time we've seen Clubhouse for the stage. In the past, Oxygen was pretty good on it, and Mirage, I think, was also kind of decent on it. They were at least fairly comfortable on it. I think they had a decent number of plays on it, but it's a pretty different Mirage team. Doesn't matter all that much. So looking at the round break, no, we'll look at the community prediction actually. 91% in favor of Oxygen. It could maybe even be more skewed, like I believe 95% or something. It probably would have been, yeah, even higher, like 95% or something like that if Mirage hadn't beat TSM, but I guess that earned them a little bit of a good grace. So they got about 10%, but it was indeed a David versus Goliath situation where David was not looking too hot. Okay, so Oxygen takes the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. Finally, Mirage gets the very last round, keeps themselves alive. Maybe Mirage can mount a little bit of a comeback here, but they don't really. Oxygen gets this round, putting Mirage's backs against the wall, and then Mirage gets one more, denying that 7-1, but then we go into the final round, and this was a really big comeback. Dream gets a 4K. He gets like 3 kills back to back to back in over the course of like 2 seconds with his SMG to bring a 2v5 into a 2v2, and then it goes down to 1v1, which he wins out. So, right, a 7-2 win for Oxygen. And looking at the stats here, it's Razor on top once again, with Marmalade actually tying him on rating. So she's once again the second highest rated player, and then Benji, Thomas, Melted, getting pretty well crushed. And then looking at the stats over here, everyone doing well. Newer's the least well, but I mean, still good. Vertical, the second lowest player, but I think he's still the highest rated player in the league by a pretty big margin, Foxay, and then Laxing and Dream on the 1.5 ratings. Dream got a lot of this rating in just that very last round, getting the getting what, like 4 kills, getting a clutch, and well, 3 plants for the day. High cost. Laxing's cost is still 100% in what, 3 of his games, so his cost overall is massively high, and we'll look at the stats in just a second. And I mean, I guess we'll just go straight there because that does it for all of the games. Here we have the leaderboards, and then we'll look at the full stats pretty briefly. Okay, so Vertical's rating fell a little bit, but he's still the top by a pretty wide margin. The second highest player is also an Oxygen player, being Laxing. Then we have Surf, Yaga, and Skies, so a little bit of representation from some of the better performing teams in the top of the ratings. And then KD, also Vertical, and then Surf's up here as well. Skies, Laxing, so 4 of the same players in rating in KD, but then we have Foxay up here as well. Entry, Newers is on top. Surf, Wimpy, Razor, Achieved, all putting up decent numbers. Nobody's absolutely running away with it. Only +6 after 4 play days isn't the biggest deal ever, but I mean, 0.6 is still the best, or +6 rather. And then cost, this is very interesting. Laxing, Vertical, Kino, Foxay, Yaga are the 5 highest players in terms of cost. This is just the Oxygen roster from last season. So, right, Kino and Yaga went over to XSET, and now here they are on the top of cost. So I guess this just speaks to how good all of the players are. And I mean, they had their successes in the last season. First place in stage 1, second place in stage 2, top 8 finish at 6 Invitational. But I mean, maybe they just really do fare better going their separate ways. Kino and Yaga being very successful thus far on XSET, and Laxing, Vertical, and Foxay killing it with their new players. And then clutches, we have several players on too, so not terribly interesting there. And then for plants, we have Dream and Marmalade, the top planters. These two actually went head-to-head for the day. I imagine Dream had more plants on the actual day. I think Marmalade had, what, 6 coming in the day, so she must only got 1. Then Eclipse, Bosco, Kool-Aid. So we'll look at the full stats for just a second. And I think, right, Kino and Yaga and Fox, right, so the 5 former Oxygen players are in the top 7 for rating and the top 5 in cost, so just yeah, super good. Some other players that are doing pretty well. I think Merc not doing too well on the day, but his stats remain high. Newers, Wimpy, Rampy had a really good game against Astralis. Didn't manage to win it, but you know, he put up good numbers individually. And we'll look at the bottom of the board here. So Super at the very bottom, Melted still down here, Thomas, Penguin, Slash at the bottom 5. And this is a very unfortunate stat. So how do I think it's survival rate, and then by, yeah, so the Sonics players are all down here. I guess Grixer higher than Thomas, but besides that, they are all the 5 bottom surviving players, and that makes sense. I mean, you only won 6 rounds over 6 rounds, and you lost what, like 28 rounds. So yeah, you're dying most of the rounds. It is what it is, but I just it's almost a little bit cute to look at. So I guess that does it for the player stats. We'll take a quick look at the map stats. Oregon, attacker sided, and now we've seen 5 plays of it. Chalet, very attacker sided. Bank, defender sided. Villa, pretty well defender sided. Theme Park, very attacker sided. Only 2 plays for some of these maps though. Border, defender sided. Skyscraper, defender sided. Clubhouse, attacker sided. So a lot of the maps that were defender sided before are attacker sided, and this is only through a small number of plays for some of these maps. And then some of the maps that you'd think would be very attacker sided are defender sided, like Border and Bank and whatnot. And okay, that does it for this. Let's go look at the standings. Okay, here we have the current standings. I'll read them off 1 through 10. We have Oxygen, Space Station, Astralis, Beast Coast, XSET, Dark Zero, Parabellum, TSM, Mirage, Sonics. So definitely some surprises here. Some teams have moved up or down a little bit from the last week. Not too many crazy moves from the last week, but from expectations going into the season at the very beginning, some of these are kind of shocking. So I think I talked about this a little bit incorrectly in the previous video. So they apparently changed it this season. It is now round count as the main tie-breaking factor over head-to-head. So Space Station is above Astralis because they have a better round differential, even though Astralis beat Space Station. So in 2021, it'd be Astralis over Space Station based off of the head-to-head. But that is now the second factor. So only if they were both on the same round differential would the head-to-head come into play. And then there's like round win percentage and some other factor. And then if all of those things are tied, then they play a tiebreaker match. But okay, it's probably, so round differential, I guess, is just much more important this season than it was last season, because before round differential very rarely came into play because of the nature of just playing one best of one. So the head-to-head was like always into effect. Sometime there would be a 3-team mini league, but then really only your round differential within that mini league mattered. So yeah, it just didn't come into play all that often. And right, so we have Astralis and Beast Coast way up here, so, and as well as XSET, so that pushes Dark Zero, TSM, and Sonics out of the top 5. These prior top 5 teams. We see Dark Zero having gone to overtime twice already. I think maybe we saw this from them at one point before, the 1-1-1-1. Maybe not. Okay, but yeah, Oxygen, absolute kings right now, and they play Space Station, so I'll predict that game in the prediction video, but that could well be the game of the stage, or it could be a massacre. We'll have to see. Astralis keeps looking pretty good. The only loss that they took was against the Overlords of Oxygen, so, I mean, maybe Astralis is actually better than Space Station. They beat Space Station, so there is that, but that is also something we'll address in the power rankings. And then Beast Coast, I mean, they continue to get wins on the board. They do have 2 losses, but one of them was in round 15, and the other one was against Oxygen. XSET was incredible this last week, a 7-0 and a 7-1, and maybe you can just chalk the first week up to being the very first week for our new team. Dark Zero is just like kind of here and there, have had some okay matches. You know, they're 2-2, but they lost a point here and they made up for it with a point here. I don't know. They're sort of mediocre at the moment. And Parabellum, they looked quite good coming in the last playday, but then they got 7-1 by XSET, so that made them look a little bit not so good. TSM not living up to the World Championship expectations that they set, well, by winning the World Championship. Right, they did take a loss to Oxygen and Space Station, 2 of the best team, and then one of the next best teams, again, Space Station. But they also lost to Mirage, who are way down here, and then their only win is up against XSET, which might end up being a good win by the end of the stage, but maybe they were just lucky that they got to play them when they did. And right, Mirage, so, maybe they're going to get another win at some point. Maybe it'll be against Sonics, maybe it'll be an upset against someone else, but for now they just have the 1 win, and Sonics do not have a win or a point to their names. They don't even have enough rounds for a game win to their names. Very unfortunate. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that does it for playdate number 4. We're going to roll out with the play of the day, and I guess that makes, DP Fire already has 2 plays of the day. I think he was the play of the day for the very first playday. So, yeah, I guess not anything else to say, so I will catch you guys in the next video.
You can see it there in the middle of the screen. The case is down. They need to get someone up against that laundry wall to be able to pick it up and plant it. Iconic finds it, but he's also taken out by NJR. This is falling apart suddenly for Astralis after they had such a promising start. Look at this now from Eclipse. He'll creep up. They don't know he's there. Gets the one, but he's traded out, and now all the pressure comes down to DP Fire as he's got to find these last 2 members of DZ, but look at how low they are. NJR and Canadian, both with about a third of HP remaining to try and fight out this round. DP Fire's probably not going to know that, though, so we still got to play this so cautiously. There's the first peek. There's the first bit of intel as he knows where that first player's playing at, but no, the timing is bad. DP Fire will lose another third of his HP. Tries to swing, tries to lock down, but NJR is just playing with them now. Finally, DP Fire, he'll get that first kill, and there's still 30 seconds left, so DP Fire can do this, but now he'll be at a disadvantage, but what a shot from DP Fire as he clutches it out huge for Astralis, and they take the lead.